We're
Hi,
live.
guys. Hello, Oily here. Thanks for coming. We appreciate you. Out in the external, we've got Wheat Tree and Iowa K and Living Frugal and Prepping
Yeah.
and Squibs out there and in here. And hopefully, I got that muted, the external. Oklahoma Preppers, internal and external. Let's see who else.
I got a wrench. I should go out there and use it.
Be nice. No hitting anybody over the head with the wrench, okay?
All right.
Okay. So today, of course, we have Frank, the Oklahoma Prepper. We have Mouse Toes. We have Squibload. We have Steve McGarrett, a.k.a. Hawaii Volcano Squad.
That's me.
All of their channel links that have channels over here are in the description box below, and those that have Steemits is under their YouTube chat. So the ones that have Steemit links are under there. So Prepper's gonna do this chat and kind of head it up, and we'll go from there and see what. Today is going to be about trauma assessment and baseline vitals, not Vaseline like Wheat Tree thought she read Vaseline vitals. VV for Vaseline vitals is what Iowa K put out there. So, anyway, I don't think Vaseline has vitals that I know of, but if you find they do, then that would be interesting information. So you can let me know. But anyway, so we'll let Oklahoma Prepper take it away. I guess he had some news he might want to share too before he gets started on this. SKS Hugo joined us out there in the external. Hi, everybody. I appreciate all of you coming. All righty. Well, let's go, Oklahoma. I'll pass it on to you.
All right. What's up, everybody? This is the Oklahoma Prepper. A couple of things that I wanted to shed light on around here in Oklahoma. Something that was kind of very, very rare to have happened has happened. Last week, Thursday, there was a train hit a car in Oklahoma City. A vehicle was trying to beat a train at a crossing. No, actually, it was the vehicle had just allowed one train to pass, and it was a multi-track crossing, and didn't pay attention and let the train clear, and the crossing gate a chance to go up, and they went around the cross. Muted or low. Maybe this will help. Hopefully this helps.
Oh, but, yeah, much better.
Okay, sorry. Anyways, the driver in Oklahoma City tried to go around a crossing before he made sure that there was clear of any tracks, clear of any trains. Didn't know that there was another train coming on the other track, and was hit, and 2 passengers were killed in that.
I think I saw something like that in X-Files, the movie. There's a scene like that, or was it like a Jason Statham movie?
Don't remember. But that same day in Duncan, just about 80 miles south, a train, someone tried to beat a train to a crossing, and they did not win. I don't think there were any deaths in that one. But, that's very rare for things like that to happen in the same day within such a close vicinity. The next day in Wichita Falls, which is about 30 minutes away from me, it is in Texas, but, still that close of a vicinity, the same thing happened. Someone tried to beat the train through a crossing and did not win. And no one was killed on that incident. The next day, back in Duncan,
computers are taking over. Skynet.
Yeah. Skynet. The next day, on that same crossing in Duncan, as the vehicle was hit 2 days before, a pedestrian was hit and killed while trespassing on the track. Don't know if she had earbuds in and couldn't hear the train whistle, or
She was texting on her Apple iPhone or something.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, cyber singularity is a thing, you know. I mean, are the robots going to, you know, just swat us before we do it to ourselves?
Yeah, but
we'll probably elimination before anybody else, before the robots eliminate us. Sometimes we're just dumb and we do dumb things.
Yeah, this is human error. The trains aren't controlled by computers; they're controlled by people. But it was the people attempting to race the train that made the error. I've got train tracks in my backyard. Before I lived here, I thought trains held me up at intersections for a long period of time. And I like trains and whatnot, but I don't like being late to work because of them or something like that. Once I lived here and I started having the train come through the backyard, I started noticing how little time they actually are holding up traffic. Unless they come to a stop, it's really not that long. It seems like a lot if you don't have a lot of trains go by, but if you have 8 trains a day go by, after a while you get to notice they're only a few minutes. It's not worth risking your life. Just wait a few minutes, the train will pass.
You're right.
Yeah, if the train stops, go the other way and go around it. But otherwise, just wait. It's a few minutes. It's not worth your life.
Yeah. So, you know, with all that being said, there's 2 things that I wanted to touch base and let you guys remind. I'm not, you know, I trust everyone on here to not be a part of that natural selection, but just to kind of give advice to anybody else that you have seen trying to beat a train, or you know, told you, hey, yeah, I beat that train the other day, or I would have been late to work. I wanted to remind you guys, I know how to operate a locomotive. I know how to work. I know how to operate a train and know how railroad operates. Even going at 5 miles an hour, there was a video on YouTube where a semi tried to beat a train and did not win. The train still carried that semi another 50 foot from the time they applied, from the time that the train struck the semi. That's 50 foot at 5 miles an hour with emergency brake applied. There's so much inertia behind a train. Do not risk it. You're not only putting your lives at risk, but the lives of your passengers. You may not realize it, but you're also putting your family's lives at risk, because they have to live with the choices that you've made. And not only that, a lot of people don't realize that, you know, and I'm going through a town at 50 miles an hour and somebody tries to beat my train to a crossing, I can't do anything but pull the emergency, push that initial reduction and then set my emergency brake and blow the whistle. There is nothing else I can do. My train will not stop immediately. It will take up to a mile before my train stops.
I'm just going to say this. Mainland drivers are fucking crazy. Because it's like, I live on the Big Island, and, you know, it's different. When after you've lived here for a while, I mean, you know, it's like people from California come over and they drive like they're in California. And it's just like, it's like you're on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Like, the nearest important thing is 3,000 miles away. And there's nothing here that's really important to get to. So why rush to get anywhere? You know, so, you know, here, when I first got here, what I noticed was, you know, if 2 or 3 cars approach a stop sign, it'll be like, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. And on the mainland, everybody tries to go at the same time. It's this, but then, you know, the more mainland people move here, you know, when the real estate prices went crazy on the mainland, they were a little cheaper here, so people bought stuff here. Oh, great, the construction downstairs. Anyway, the main thing you have to watch out for is the train wreck is going to be the debt ceiling that's coming up.
Exactly. But
Oklahoma, I think it's because people think trains stop like cars, just like they think tractor trailers stop like cars, or that motorcycles stop like cars, because they've never operated a train or a semi or a motorcycle. They don't give any of those three respect, and it's not something they tell you. It's not something they teach you in driver's ed. You have to operate the vehicle to appreciate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No. Hawaii, they are not big.
They're heavy.
They are huge, and all they are doing is getting longer. That is all they are doing. They are not getting any shorter. They are getting longer. A few years ago, a train here in where I live would only be about 100 cars long, with 2 or 3 engines pulling.
America relies on rail to ship, all kinds of a big percentage of its, stuff that it buys.
Yeah. But trains are just getting longer. Trains are getting longer. There's more tonnage behind a locomotive every day. They're just getting longer. So, all right. Let's get.
I wanted to say real quick before you start your lesson. My grandbaby started school today.
Oh my goodness. They're getting older. Has she got a job yet?
Oh, she thinks she does, telling everybody what to do and things like that. But yeah, I know she started school today, and she didn't want her mama taking her to school. She wanted to ride the bus.
Oh my goodness.
And she was 40 minutes early waiting for the bus, standing out on the porch.
40 minutes early for a school bus? That's not cool.
Yeah, and then she was mad because they wasn't there when she was ready. And then she ended up having to take the bus out to our house in the middle of nowhere in the country. So she got a long bus ride that way because she lives in town. So anyway, I just had to share that. And she decided, here she's wearing this little T-shirt and shorts, because it's hot here in Oklahoma. So the kids wear shorts.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, so she decided she wanted to wear her black patent leather dress shoes with her shorts, and her mama let her, so it was cute. We have pictures and stuff, so it was pretty funny. But
your video was so cute of her, because she was like, see ya, I'm going.
Yeah, and that was after she started to take off for the bus, and her mom's like, wait, I want a kiss before you go. Because this was harder on Mama than was Chelsea. Chelsea was ready to go. She's mad because she's not having school on Saturday and Sunday, too. She didn't think that was right. And, she's the tallest one in her class.
Gosh.
She's about the height of a 6-year-old instead of a 4-year-old. So anyway, but yeah, she had fun, but she was exhausted when she got back because she had a hard time going to sleep last night because she was so excited.
Did she like the bus ride to your house?
Oh, yes, she did. But she was tired. I could not keep her awake. I felt bad, but I couldn't keep her awake for her mama. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Just going to take her a little while to get used to the hours. Hey, Faye. Welcome, everybody that came in. Up to that point, I said hi on the side chat, but welcome Finger Lakes and Faith and SKS and Jared and Tin Woodsman and everybody. HRM Weapons Machinist. Good to see y'all. Okay, well, now that I've done my little thing on my granddaughter, now you can take it away.
So today we're going to be talking about trauma assessment and baseline vitals. One of the first things I wanted to start talking about is one of the first two things that I want to talk to you guys about and remind you. First of all, if you guys have any advice or updated information for me, let me know in the chat. I'm always up for new advice. I was an EMT for several years. I have been on all kinds of calls, medical calls. What I'm going to be talking about today is simply a advice on what to do in a certain situation. We're going to be focusing our scenarios on what would happen if you guys were out camping or out hunting, and you had a friend with you, or just out hiking, and something happened to you or your friend, or even in a SHTF situation where you guys are on the move on foot or whatever. So the first thing I want to make sure everyone remembers is body substance isolation. When you come up on a incident where somebody may have uh, gotten hurt, gotten sick, or any other medical emergency, the first thing you want to do is always wear gloves that can be nitrile, latex, or vinyl. My suggestion would be nitrile high-risk gloves that gives you added protection, and it's non-allergenic as well. So you've got your body substance isolation. The very minimum is gloves. Your judgment should be based on what type of situation. If there's a lot of blood involved, then you want to start taking precautions for eye protection and oral and nasal protection as well to keep the bloodborne illnesses from entering your body through mucus glands. So and then as far as the gowns and all that stuff, that goes into more disease and stuff like that. So just everything, all your body substance isolation is basically judgmental upon yourself. You must take that into consideration, what type of illnesses and injuries are possible with the situation, and protect yourself accordingly. The next thing I want to say, the number 2 on the list is your scene size up. You want to make sure your scene is safe. If you come up on a friend that was hiking with you and you don't know what happened, look around. Make sure that a tree branch had fallen and fell on him, you want to make sure that there's no other tree branches that are going to do that and hurt you as well, because when you start to provide medical care, that person you are providing medical care is dependent on you to keep yourself safe, to provide medical care to any patient or any victim. So be mindful of your scene safety. If you're driving and you come up on a wreck and you want to stop and give care, then you want to make sure that you are not in the way of traffic. There's no fuel spilt, no sparks, and there's no potential for down power lines falling, or fire starting.
And it's not a setup.
Yeah. In a bad situation, that in like a Teotwaki situation or whatever, or martial law or whatever, you just have no idea. And also, like when you're talking about down power lines, if you come across a scene and somebody is laying there unconscious, and you're approaching the scene, and you take a look around, if there's a down power line or something like that, or if there's several down in that area and you're not seeing like that they're gunshot victims or whatever, which is already another issue, then you could be dealing with a gas leak, a chemical leak, something like that. If you see a down power line, you need to make sure that line is that electric is off before approaching a scene, things like that. Plus, if they've been electrocuted, you don't necessarily want to be touching them right away, because
and make sure there's no bad guys hiding in the bushes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Volcano. There, in a SHTF situation, there could be an ambush set up. So, you have to use your own judgment. And you, in a situation like that, you have to make the decision: hey, am I going to help this person, or am I going to keep myself safe and just move on? So, you've got to kind of always have all those things in mind. All the negativity, you've got to keep it in your mind, because that's what keeps you alert, oriented, and on your toes.
Exactly.
So the next thing is mechanism of injury or nature of illness. You want to make sure you want to try to figure out if the person is sick. You know, just kind of figure out what they might be sick from, and what the issue could be, or if it's a mechanism of injury. If it's an injury, then you want to the first thing you want to do is take C-spine precaution, which means hold their head stable, looking forward from their body. So, as if they were standing, you want to make sure that they are you want to tilt their head as if they're looking straight in front of them. So keep their head stable. Do not. There's no try in this situation. There's no try to not move their head. Do not move their head. Um, make sure you know how many patients you have, and call for help if you need to. Um, so you or your friend or someone else has taken C-spine immobilization, or they're stabilizing the patient's head or the victim's head. If you don't have anyone else and you have a extra towel, extra shirts, roll them up into a burrito and set them on either side, one on each side of the victim's head, to help stabilize while you can control bleeding or something else. So make a general impression of the patient. As far as in this situation, we are going to focus on trauma, because, you know, in this chapter, in this area of our chat, we're going to focus on trauma and what's possibility is for us as preppers and outdoorsmen and hikers and campers and all that stuff, and what we will need to do to help in the situation. If there is a patient bleeding, find out where the blood is coming from and try to control bleeding, whether it be with direct pressure or a tourniquet. So we've got um, your BSI, scene safety, your mechanism of injury, your number of patients, C-spine is stabilized, and we've got your general impression, which is, you know, like I said, if it's a bleed, find out where the bleeding is from. If they've, you know, tree branches falling on them and they might have a broken back, you know, you have to take precaution and all that. If your patient is, or if the victim is not responsive, that doesn't necessarily mean they are dead. Check for radial. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera on to kind of give you guys an idea as to where to check for different different arteries for pulse ROT. So you have your beard. You're not going to see my neck very well, but if you put your fingers right in the middle of your throat, right above your trachea, and move just to the left or the right into that indentation, around that area is where your carotid artery will be, and that's, or people commonly think they're jugular, but it's actually your carotid artery. Another thing is your brachial artery, and that's going to be right under your arm, right under your armpit, where your arm rests against the side of your chest. Let me move my camera around so you can see me better. Your arm rests against the side of your chest. That is going to be where your brachial artery is. And if you're dealing with a small child or an infant, then your brachial artery is going to be the best place to check for a pulse in little people, you know, kids, babies, stuff like that. The next thing you have is your radial artery, and that's going to be the artery that sits in your wrist, where, you know, most commonly pulse is taken at. And you will find the joint where your thumb meets your radius bone, and you will move down into that little groove right there and just a little bit up with your index finger, and you will feel the radial artery there. The next thing you want to, the next one is your femoral artery. These are a little bit harder to find, harder to get to, less likely to get a pulse from radial artery or femoral artery. And the femoral artery is in your femur. That is the main artery feeding blood to your legs. And the very last one is the dorsalis pedis. I'm not going to show you guys my feet on camera, but everyone's dorsalis pedis is very, very different. The dorsalis pedis is the artery in the top of your foot. Pedis, yes, dorsalis pedis. I know it sounds funny, I'm sorry, but it's medical terminology. That artery is found at the top of your foot, just let me look at my foot and see where it's at. Just between your big toe and the next toe, and right up about 2 inches, you will feel the pulse in that foot, in your foot. We've got arteries, we've got blood, pulse, and when you're checking for pulse, you want to count out 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a full minute. It's up to you, depending on how bad the situation is, will determine what how long you want to check pulse. Normal heart rate varies from age to age. Oily, if you can put that heart rate chart up for me, that would be amazing. Also, heart rate will vary from how healthy a person is to how unhealthy a person is as well. So take that into consideration. All this information is to be stored and wrote down and given to medical EMS or paramedics if the situation allows you to do so. Blood pressure cuffs are very, very vital to medical. They tell you a lot about what the patient is or is not doing and what is going on with the patient, such as if they are having a heart attack, a stroke, simply having a blood pressure issue, or if they have a fever. Yes, blood pressure can tell you how if a patient is possibly has an infection that will raise blood pressure a little bit, as well as white cell counts. And the way to check blood pressure, if you guys, the simplest way, and I am not, as an EMT, I do not use this method, but as citizens or civilians, and just in general to help with prepping and survival, one of the biggest things to do is check blood pressure. Get a blood pressure cuff, learn how to use it, make sure you have the right one for the right size of patient you have. The blood pressure cuffs vary in size according to how big your patient is. They have blood pressure cuffs for infants, children, young, small adults, large adults, and they have blood pressure cuffs for femoral arteries, for your thighs.
Were you trying to put up a chart? Because I didn't see any chart.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
Now I'm seeing it. Oily, you have to present that.
Yes, you just hadn't presented, that's all.
Okay. There it is. Hit the present button on there.
All right. I just gotta get. I had my camera on me the whole time, or my camera set up. But anyways.
No, that's on Oily. Oily has it up. She has to put herself on present.
Yeah, no, she does. I had on my screen. I had it set to mine on my phone, so it was only showing mine instead of everyone else's, which is why I kept looking up at it, trying to figure out why am I not seeing everyone else? Am I alone here? But okay, blood pressure. Whenever you're taking your victim's blood pressure, the best way to do it is on the blood pressure cuff, you will see a line that says where to place the blood pressure cuff. Place that line in conjunction to the brachial artery. So you want to make sure that that is where you're going to place your blood pressure cuff to get a good blood pressure. The next thing you want to do is you want to use a stethoscope.
Hold on just a second. Are y'all still not seeing it? Because I have it presented to everyone, but it's not showing up.
Now your screen is frozen. Your cam's froze on you.
What we see is somebody's internal. Now it's on there.
Yeah, don't
Okay,
move
maybe
oily.
Now show it.
Yeah,
And
oily. You're fine. Just don't do anything oily. It looks fine.
But it's not presenting the full screen, is it?
Right. It's
Close enough.
We Tree Bonsai says it's not being presented to the room, but we can't read it. Volcano. You feel?
Yeah,
me?
so that's why I'm trying to get it to maximize, but it's not letting me. I'm
Maximification.
there. Matt.
Oh, see, that's what I always do. Remember?
Oily in the sky with diamonds.
Okay, I'm stopping for a second.
Cease
Everybody-
and desist. Freeze.
Everybody drop acid now.
Okay, when you present to everybody, Oklahoma's got to be talking in order for the image on his screen to be seen by everybody.
Everybody Wang Chung tonight. That was complicated, Squiblode.
The only reason I noticed because of the lock and load shows where I have the pictures of the ships and whatnot. So Hawaii presents to everybody, but when I talk, whatever's on my computer screen is what's presented. As soon as I stop talking, it goes back.
Oh,
Well,
I
no.
see. Because
Well, no,
in the external, it is showing Oklahoma Prepper. His
Yeah.
world mountain icon.
When we do the lock and load show, I present you to the audience, Squib. So that's why everybody sees your ships. Because I click on your thing and down click.
Language.
Oh my gosh, why is it?
I said click.
Ship.
What's wrong with click?
SHIPS.
Okay.
I do pictures of ships, military ships. Jeez.
Yeah, we don't show
Wait,
pictures
wait.
of excrement on
Wait,
my
wait.
show.
Why say vessel? The vessels.
Naval vessel.
Yes,
Naval vessels. Where do you keep the naval vessels?
Let's just tell it this way.
The nuclear
All you gotta
vessel.
do is go look up on the internet blood pressure chart. You know what the normal blood pressure chart is, and look up what normal pulse rates are for different age ranges and stuff like that. And you'll print them off. There's a blood pressure chart by age, and then there's a pulse rate. There's a respiration chart, I'm sure. So,
Is there a chart for oxygenation? Because that was the one thing that.
I'll get to oxygenation. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
oxygenation.
Oxygenation.
Why am I not?
This.
Oh my goodness.
Normal oxygen
He's
level.
a Russian spy in Oklahoma, and he doesn't know how to talk English really. So.
No, English.
Oxygen pneumesticus.
There you go.
By the way.
All right. Okay. So, anyways, back to blood pressure. Stethoscopes. That's another important thing you need to have with your blood pressure kit is a good stethoscope.
I don't have one of those. Shoot.
Yep.
Stethoscopes. They usually come with your blood pressure cuffs. Are usually crap. You can buy a really good stethoscope from Walmart for about $10. They are very, very useful, and they are very, very clear in sound.
Walmart has them? They have good ones at Walmart? What, you know the brand name of it?
They're not brand names, but they are very, very good. I used the entire time that I worked as an EMT, I used a stethoscope from Walmart. The stethoscope, the tubing was very thick, so you could hear a clear, heartbeat without any outside noise drowning it out. And that is very important.
Oklahoma, you need to tell them about when a pulse ox is not an accurate reading.
Yeah, I'll get to that here in just a second.
Okay.
As far as blood pressure, as far as back to checking blood pressure, you want to put the stethoscope at the bend or the break of their elbow, just above, and pump it up to about 200. MMHG is a measurement of millimeters of mercury. You want to pump that blood pressure cuff up to about 200 and then slowly let off. Once you hear the first heartbeat in your stethoscope, that is going to be your top number. That's going to be usually normal is about 120 depending on age and health of the patient. In general,
Your sound's going funky again, Oklahoma.
I don't know. I'm having.
There you go.
Okay. The first time you hit your heartbeat on when you're coming down off of blood pressure at 200 is going to be your top number. That is going to be the number you write down, and then you can dump out to about 100 or 90 millimeters of mercury, and then you want to listen again and slowly release air out of that blood pressure cuff. And the last heartbeat you hear, that number is going to be your bottom number, and that's going to be roughly average for a normal healthy person. Adult is 120 over 80, and that is just average for. That is average normal for people in people around that age. Let's see. The next one is going to be breath sounds. I'm sorry, airway.
Oklahoma.
Did we lose him?
Oklahoma.
I saw that movie.
Okay,
yeah, I can hear you now, but you're really low level.
Okay,
What is going on?
I have a question. I had a friend who was in the hospital, and they had the worst CNA who came in to take his blood pressure, and she was pumping that cuff up to 300, and he's a big guy. And so the first time she did it, and I noticed, I went, that's too high. And she said, no, that's what we have to do it to. So the next time she came in to get it again, I grabbed it from her, and I took the cuff off. And, of course, I went down, waited 10 minutes for an RN. And you can actually do nerve damage doing that, especially on a guy built like a bear. You know what I mean? Is that not outrageous?
Cuff as a tourniquet if you need to. So
yes.
Keep making sure it doesn't lose air. So yeah, you can do major damage, not just nerve damage, but cut off the circulation.
Yes. So the next day, the RN came up to me and said she called the CNA, you know, the company that they contract them through, and that is what they were teaching them. Is that not insane? She would have done that about 5 times to him. He'd have had nerve damage. So that's all I wanted to say, Oklahoma, about what would, you know, the blood pressure cuff pumping it up ain't no good.
I got one of those things at Walmart that just is like in a machine. You plug it. Of course, you can't really take it with you, but if you're at home, you can check your own blood pressure in the wall, plug it into the wall. They have
battery-operated ones, actually, but, you know.
Sit around your wrist. With those, I forgot to talk about those. Those, we don't use those as an EMT. I don't use them. They are very handy to have for you guys. That will kind of give you a roundabout for blood pressure to determine what type of issue the victim is having. That brings me to another good point, Milestones. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was on a medical call, actually, like 2 houses down from my house. I just walked out the front door and walked over next door to the neighbor, and he was having a seizure, and the call came in as a possible heart attack, and I walked over and found him laying on the outside in the front yard, and this was about midnight. But I pumped the blood pressure cuff up to 200, and when I got to 200, I saw the needle jumping, which means his blood pressure was significantly high and higher, very much higher.
Lost him again.
Yeah. Your sound just went.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep losing. But anyways, so I pumped up the blood pressure cuff to 220. I went 20 points every time. I finally got to a point to where there was no heartbeat. There was not seeing a heartbeat on the blood pressure cuff, so I started down from there. So if you do pump up to 200 and you see that needle jumping, then pump it up to another 20, then another 20 each time. And you can cause nerve damage by cutting off blood circulation for too long and damaging the nerve endings that go along the inside of your arm. So be mindful of that as well. Airway, you want to make sure the patient or the victim is breathing. If they are not, tilt their head back with using your, I'll go on camera for this one.
While you're doing that, on the blood pressures, whenever I was taking my CNA course, like we were taught, if you don't get a good reading on one arm after a couple of tries, you need to switch arms.
Yes.
Or whatever, because you're not going to get as accurate of a reading. And sometimes you need to do blood pressure in separate positions. Like if they're conscious and it's not like an injury, like neck or spine injury, chance of that happening, then getting it in different positions can also help. Like if they're dizzy and stuff, if they're laying down and it's normal, but you set them up and then it's not normal, or it's dropping low, or there may be something else going on with them. So that's also just while you were getting your screen up, something to think about.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that as well. When you're taking blood pressure, if you don't want to take the patient's blood pressure on the arm that they have an injury to, or for example a snake bite, you don't want to take the blood pressure on that arm that's injured. You want to use the opposite arm. You can, and what she meant by different positions to take blood pressure is laying down, sitting up, or standing up. And you want to make sure that the victim's legs are not crossed while you're taking a blood pressure, because that can give you a false reading as well. All right, now on airway, whenever you suspect an unresponsive victim of having a C-spine injury, which is a neck injury, you want to use what's called the head tilt chin lift method, and you want to put your index and middle finger under the chin and put your other hand on their head and tilt back while you're lifting the chin. That way you can get the best way to open their airway without damaging anything else. If they are in a C collar or there's no way to move their head, you can use the jaw thrust maneuver. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your index and middle finger on both sides and you're going to put it behind their jaw, their lower jaw, and you're going to put your thumbs just below their eyelids on their cheekbones, and you're going to pull your index and ring finger to you while you're pushing your thumbs forward. That's going to pull their jaw out and
scissor technique, right? Called the scissor technique.
No, that's for opening their mouth when you're inserting an oropharyngeal airway or nasopharyngeal airway.
Okay, I thought that's what you're talking about.
Checking breath sounds, checking respiration rate is another thing that can be done in 10 seconds, 15, 30, or 1 minute, depending how how bad the patient is, what type of injury or illness is going on, and whether or not they need to be assessed immediately. Let's see, airway, making sure that their airway is open. If the patient is having a seizure, do not insert anything into their mouth to keep them from biting their tongue, because that in some cases will do more damage than anything else. If they cannot breathe with everything you've tried to open their airway with, look down their throat and see if there's anything obstructing their airway. If there's not, don't do anything. If you see something down there like a jawbreaker or a piece of gum or something, you can do a finger sweep, but never do a blind finger sweep. If you cannot see anything in there, do not attempt it. When you're listening to their lungs with a stethoscope, make sure you listen to breath sounds on each side of their lungs. If you come across a patient that has a trauma patient has possibly a collapsed lung, pick up a sheet of paper and slowly crumble it and listen to that sound. That sound is the sound of a collapsed lung. And there's, unfortunately, you can do outside of the hospital for a patient with a collapsed lung without being very, very heavily trained and how to fix that. If the patient has any type of trauma to the chest, everyone in here that has Facebook, I guarantee, has seen that video. This is what happens when you drink too much Red Bull, or this is what happened when you drink too many energy drinks. The guy's chest is just absolutely, it looks like his heart is literally beating out of his chest. That is not from from energy drinks. That is from what is called paradoxical movement or flail chest. That is a traumatic injury to the chest where a section of the ribs are broken, and that section is flailing with the lungs. That is not a medical issue. That is not a.
So it's safe to drink Red Bull.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's never safe to drink that crap.
I know that, like that was one of the things the cardiologist crossed off my diet, and I had done this. I had done some some really good margarita mixers and a green tip margarita and a bunch of cool drink videos on my YouTube channel. And somebody from a caffeine kind of drink company wanted me to do a video with their drink, and I was like, if I wish they would have called me before I had open heart surgery instead of after, because I can't do it anymore. So I used to buy Monster Energy drinks by the case, and I can't do that anymore. So
Twizzlers aren't good for you either.
I was just thinking that.
I had to.
Well, I remember at when the cardiologist asked me, well, what did you have the night for dinner the night before you showed up at the ER with congestive heart failure? And I told him I had for dinner once. I had an ice cream sandwich, cheese Doritos, and beer. And he was like, never mind. We have to.
And he was
redo
like,
your diet.
single man? You're a single man.
Yeah.
Single life.
I was like, what's wrong with that? I'm an American, I mean.
America. All right. So, let's see. We've gotten to flail chest. If you do see flail chest, then look up on YouTube. If you guys can handle squirmy stuff, if you guys aren't too squeamish, look it up, flail chest on YouTube, and you will see what you want to do with. Go ahead.
It's not that I'm squeamish, but you know, they before you have open heart surgery, they play you the video of it, what they do, and I just couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
and they make it, they try and make it non-squeamishy, you know, but I couldn't even look. It's like, yeah, whatever.
But when you know that's fixing to happen to you, and no matter how non-squeamishy it makes you, and you can't help it. I mean, not.
Yeah, just give me, administer the you know, stuff to knock me out, and then, you know, I'll wake up the next day in terrible pain. But
it's the rib spreader part that gets me. I have to mute when I watch something on that.
Well, they have to cut through them first, don't they? Don't they cut through the ribs?
Yeah. They saw your sternum right in half, and all your chest muscles and everything else.
Mm-hmm. So. Zipper Club. Member of the Zipper Club.
Anyway, I'm sorry to have interrupted you, but
you're good. Anything to add to it is always helpful, because, you know, with Mouse and Oily, they reminded me of things on blood pressure that I forgot. So anytime you guys think of something or have a question, just ask me. Rain Country, you're absolutely right. Real chocolate is good for you and good for your heart. It really is. So
it's when they add all that sugar and oil and stuff like that, that's what makes it.
What about Bushmills? I just picked up some Bushmills at my last shopping trip.
I don't know.
If you're in an SHTO situation, I'm eating everything. I don't care if it's good for me or not. But okay, so when you're dealing with paradoxical movement or flail chest and a chest injury, you want to put a bulk dressing in there just to kind of keep the.
Oh, lost you again. Just to keep the.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Bulk dressing to keep the what?
To keep the chest from flailing, that will reduce more that will reduce the risk of having more damage to the area because of the flail chest. And that's just something. Bulky dressing is something like Curlex, or, you know, just a big wad of gauze or something, just to kind of put in there and wrap that area with an ACE bandage, not entirely too tight, not tight at all, just enough that, you know, it holds there really good. And make sure that their ventilations are very adequate, not too shallow, not labored. So, you know, those things can also determine how you're going to treat your patient, or how you're going to report this issue to the EMTs or paramedics. Let's see. I've got airway and circulation somewhat covered for the most part, and breathing. Those are my ABCs. I got my ABCs set up. Okay, now as far as baseline vitals, one thing that I really want to talk to you guys about is your pulse oximeter. Pulse oximeters are awesome to have. There is no way of knowing what their oxygen level is without one, unless you are in a hospital and have all that good stuff accessible to you. Pulse oximeter, normal oxygen level is 100. That is ideal. Anything lower than about 90, then the patient goes on oxygen.
Our respiratory therapist at the nursing home told us 93. Anything below 93, we were to put them on oxygen. Get an order ready and get it sent.
I can just tell you that when I was in the ambulance on the way to the emergency room, you know, basically, and I was having some breathing problems, and the guy ambulance, the EMT said, you know, yeah, don't worry, I'm looking at your oxygen. Your oxygen's fine. All the time that I'm like can barely breathe, because, you know, I have like one of my lungs is closed because there's like, you know, too much blood pool behind it, and it can't open. So he's like, I'm looking at your oxygen. Your oxygen's fine. Don't worry, you know. But I think Go ahead.
That's a good point. Just because you're having trouble breathing does not mean there's adequate oxygen in your blood. It just means that you're not getting as deep of a breath. If you do come across someone that is having trouble breathing, then check their oxygen levels. I had a patient in a car wreck a few years ago that was telling me that he was having trouble breathing. I checked his oxygen, with a pulse oximeter, and he was at 73. I immediately put him on 15 liters of oxygen with a non-rebreather, high concentration oxygen on a non-rebreather, and we got him to the hospital and ended up having to air vac him out. But
the other thing I'll just add to what's happening is if you're in a shit hit the fan situation and there's no hospital, I mean, what my deal was, when I got to the hospital, they gave me shots of Lasix, which is basically furosemide injections, and basically makes you just it drains all the liquid out of your kidneys. And like if they give you a shot of this into your arm, you know, I mean, you can take the pills and like in an hour you'll have to pee, but if they give you like in a shot of it in your arms within 5 minutes, you absolutely will positively have to pee. And so they basically just drain, you know, while I'm in the bed in a gurney pissing in a urinal bottle, basically, and and then that's how they just completely drain all the liquid out of your system, you know. And they kept giving me shots until I could breathe better, you know. So if you have furosemide and you're having if that is the problem, that's basically how they, you know, temporarily cured me in the ER. Of course, I don't, you know, most people don't have shots of furosemide or even the pills, but the pills take about an hour to kick in. Yeah. But the shots are like almost immediate. It's like, I got to pee now.
And if you're checking somebody's respirations and they have unequal chest rise, if you're viewing their chest and one side's going up and down and the other side isn't, that's a good indication of several different things that could be going on with that side. That lung's not inflating for some reason. Either it's collapsed or they've got blood in their chest or something's going on that's causing that to happen.
Yes, our hour is up, but I want to explain something very important to you guys before I stop right here. 100, your oxygen level at 100 is ideal. However, if you are dealing with a patient that has possible, carbon monoxide poisoning, what a pulse oximeter does is that little red light shines through your skin and your fingernail down and looks at your blood, and your oxygen is reflecting. The oxygen in your blood is reflecting that light back to the pulse oximeter, and it is measuring that light reflection and translating it into a number. If a patient has a carbon monoxide poisoning, that light is going to reflect off of carbon monoxide particles, giving you a false oxygen reading. So do not rely on a pulse oximeter in
carbon monoxide.
Yes. Do not rely on a pulse oximeter during carbon monoxide poisoning, because it is going to give you a false reading. However, it is good for checking pulse. So our time's up. I'm going to give the mic back to Oily, and if you guys have any questions or comments, you can find me on Facebook. Just type in the Oklahoma Prepper on Facebook, and you can find me on there. You can also ask me questions in my comments on my videos, and as well as on Steemit and Twitter, the Oklahoma Prepper. So I'm going to stop right now at oxygen and give the mic back to Oily.
Thanks so much, Oklahoma. And this is the first in a series that he's going to do on assessing a patient or whatever. He's going to talk about, like when he talked about a SAM splint. This is a SAM splint. Comes in a roll, and you unroll it, various things.
These
So
things
he's
aren't
talking
that
about.
expensive either on Amazon. Like I just bought a oxid pulse meter or whatever it's called for like it's like less than $20. So
Oh yeah, you can get them for about $17.
and
All
it looks like it might be high tech. When I first saw one, they look like high tech. Oh, that must be expensive, but they're not.
No, they're not expensive, and there's certain ones just like with blood pressure, you can set it up to remember the last so many. Depends on the variety you get. Just make sure you get extra batteries for that. That way, it's already there and you have it if you need it. But really great information. Night living, frugal, and prepping, and thanks for coming by. Thank you all so much. Thanks to my panel. And if you guys have any questions, you can leave them in the comments over on YouTube or on Steemit if you're watching over here. And Oklahoma Preppers tagged, so I'll just, if I see a comment for him, you can direct it to him, and I'll tag him in it so that he can see it and he can answer questions. If I can answer it, I'll answer it, and if not, I'll send it on to him so he'll have it. Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate it. Good night, you all. Love you. If you need prayer, let me know. Pinwoodsman, I'll be praying for you, bub, on those teeth, Bill. I'm sorry you were in the hospital, and we'll be praying for you. Thanks for coming, guys, and take care, and we'll see you again next week with the Lord willing.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.